From the streets to your screen, we're back with another round of heart-stopping dashcam action. From ridiculous to reckless, from insane to infuriating, Wham Bam Dashcam always satisfies. David was heading to dinner with his wife when he watched a pickup truck get T-boned by a Scion running a red light. The pickup rolled over and came to rest on its roof after being struck by the white Scion XB, which had actually been sideswiped by another car with a green light before it hit the pickup. David stopped to help, and so did plenty of other drivers. David called 911 before giving copies of his dashcam footage to the involved drivers. Kayla was on her way home from taking her best friend to work when she watched a Ford SUV from her left run a red light before smashing into another Ford SUV. The SUV that had run a red light continued rolling until it slammed into a power pole. Kayla ran to check on the occupants, and she said they were confused as to what had happened. She offered her dashcam footage to both drivers, and she let the occupants sit in her car while 911 was called. She's grateful that her own vehicle, which is less than a year old, wasn't involved in the collision. Glenn was driving late one night, and he admits he was exceeding the speed limit slightly. Moments after noticing a sheriff's deputy parked in a construction zone, Glenn watched an Infiniti driver fly past him at over 100 miles per hour. It seems like the Infiniti driver didn't notice the deputy, but the deputy sure noticed him. Glenn was passed by the party lights before the cop pulled the speeder over for some instant justice. Jonathan was following a Tesla Model Y through an intersection when the Tesla driver unexpectedly stopped. Jonathan also stopped, but the pickup driver behind him didn't. The impact of the pickup truck shoved Jonathan's Honda Civic into the back of the Model Y, making this a double rear-end collision. He told us the Tesla driver immediately blamed him for the whole thing. In fact, she said she'd stopped because he had rear-ended her first. Thankfully, Jonathan's dashcam footage proves what really happened, and nobody was seriously hurt. This submitter was headed back to New Jersey with his family when the truck ahead of him suddenly lost a tire for no apparent reason. Thankfully, our submitter was following at a safe distance and was able to avoid being hit by any debris. The trucker was able to safely pull over, and nobody was injured in the incident. Ethan's Toyota Camry was parked in front of his house when his dashcam captured a minivan driver taking a corner too fast before ending up in his yard. Incredibly, the minivan driver somehow avoided striking Ethan's Camry, but he told us this happened at 9:30 a.m. and he didn't get home until 6 p.m. That's when he discovered his lawn destroyed and debris from the minivan in his yard. Ray was running errands when she slowed down for a red light. When she heard a screeching noise from behind, she checked her rearview mirror in time to see the aftermath of a collision involving a city bus. The driver of a Honda CR-V had turned in front of the bus, but the bus driver couldn't slow down in time to avoid T-boning the CR-V. The impact spun the SUV into another one, making this a 3-vehicle collision. When Ray drove by again later, she told us the involved drivers were speaking with police and passengers were being transferred to a different bus. Ohani was on his way to work when he was passed by 2 racing BMW drivers. He watched them weave around traffic as they disappeared into the distance, but he wasn't the only one who noticed their recklessness. A California Highway Patrol trooper also spotted the street racers and took off after them, but by the time he'd caught up, one had already caused a major collision. Ohani told us he later found out a total of 6 vehicles were involved in the collision, with 3 of them being totaled, including the BMW that had caused it. The other BMW had sped away from the scene. Thankfully, this incident didn't cause any major injuries, but the aftermath is a perfect example of why racing through traffic is a terrible and dangerous idea. Ohani told us that's what racetracks are for. Selena was leaving work to go drive go-karts with a friend when an oncoming driver that should have yielded turned in front of Selena while she was going 50 miles per hour. Even though she swerved and stood on the brakes, Selena couldn't avoid a head-on collision with the turning car. Police responded, but sadly, the other driver didn't have enough insurance to cover the damage to her Corolla. She ended up going through her own insurance provider instead. Thankfully, nobody was seriously injured in this high-speed head-on collision. Watch what happened as Peso headed through an intersection with the right-of-way. That other driver proceeded past his stop sign when traffic wasn't clear, but maybe we can forgive him since vehicles parked on the street made it hard for him to see. Even so, why would he stop in the middle of the intersection? His abrupt stop forced Peso to slam on the brakes, and he came within inches of a collision. Thankfully, no contact was made. If you're ever in this situation, commit to a course of action and get out of the way as fast as you can. Sean was headed home after watching an eclipse with his mother when he had to stop for traffic at a red light. The driver of another pickup truck didn't notice his Chevy Colorado before slamming into it from behind. Sean went to check on the other driver, and he told us he smelled something weird. Thankfully, a police officer they just passed witnessed the collision and immediately responded. The initial repair estimate for Sean's Colorado is $10,000 US, but the other pickup had to be towed away. The police report was completed 3 days later, and Sean told us the other driver was both intoxicated and distracted. I've heard of drunk texting, but drunk texting while driving is next level dangerous. Thankfully, Sean and his mother are both okay, but he said they may end up paying a $1,000 deductible to get his truck fixed. He told us Wham Bam Videos convinced them to get dash cams, and he installed this one just 5 days before this collision occurred. If you need a dash cam, remember, you can get a discount using the coupon in the description. Brian spotted a Tesla behaving badly while headed home in his VW Golf.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
The Model X driver passed a city bus in the oncoming lane across double yellow lines rather than waiting for the bus driver to change lanes. He then sped off while Brian continued home. Speaking of buses, Darian had one turn in front of him while he had the right of way, and even though he tried to stop, he couldn't avoid being hit by the side of the bus as it turned. Darian called 911 and first responders were quick to arrive. Thankfully, nobody was injured, but the damage to his Kia Spectra will take $5,000 US to repair. He wasn't found responsible, so insurance coverage will be paying the bill. Sebastian watched another driver exit a parking lot before making a U-turn right in front of another driver.
As we know, Jim Harbaugh just left Michigan after winning a national championship.
The illegal U-turn across another lane nearly caused a collision, but thankfully the other driver was paying attention and was able to avoid a T-bone collision. Xander was on his way home from work when a pickup driver pulled out in front of him from a car dealership parking lot. Xander slammed on the brakes, but he told us it wasn't enough. Thankfully, the pickup driver stopped and admitted fault when law enforcement responded shortly after. Nobody was injured, and Xander is now waiting to find out how much it will cost to fix his Volkswagen Cabrio. Fulton was getting his music playing before his drive home from work when he heard tires screeching. Take a look at what happened in the nearby roundabout. A pickup driver ran into the center of the roundabout before getting back on the road and turning into a parking lot, the same parking lot Fulton was parked in. Moments later, he was headed toward Fulton's Chevy Cruze. Fulton told us he buckled up and braced for impact before the pickup stopped so close to him the high beams were shining straight into his face. Fulton decided to follow the pickup once the driver began leaving the parking lot. Eventually, Fulton stopped following him and turned around, but we have no idea why he was driving like this. We do know this happened on Cinco de Mayo, so we'll let you theorize down in the comments. This next collision involves a Tesla, but for once it wasn't the Tesla driver's fault. J-Dog was following a Range Rover that went straight through a turn lane, sideswiping a Tesla in the neighboring lane. As you can see, the arrows on the road indicate traffic in the left lane must turn left, but traffic in the right lane can turn left or continue straight. When the Tesla driver tried to turn, they collided with the Range Rover. Robert was headed to get a smoothie when he watched one driver nearly sideswipe another as they entered a turn lane early. Thankfully, Robert's honk was enough to alert the other driver and a collision was avoided. Junaid was driving down a road in Ontario when a driver in the right lane suddenly turned into his lane, clipping his Mazda 3. Thankfully, nobody was injured in the collision, and the other driver's insurance provider will be paying to repair Junaid's Mazda. He added, "Stay safe and wear your seatbelts." Brady sent us his dashcam footage from a time when he was chasing and filming what he told us is the world's largest steam train, the Union Pacific Big Boy number 4014. Just take a look at the size of that thing. I'm no rail fan, but even I can respect this impressive piece of machinery from the bygone era of steam-powered transportation. Watch this episode next if you like videos of bad pickup drivers. This emitter had one end up in his front yard. Or watch this episode if you want to see more instant justice. It features 4 different instant justice videos.
Wham, bam, we got a Patreon, man. Please support the show.